Hey Max. He's so, so, um, it's crazy right now what's happening if you know what's going on in Iran. There is, like I've been reporting, a lot of activity reporting, like I've been bringing you in these vlogs or vlogs or whatever they're called. Um, there was a lot of activity happening kinetically um, in what you would call a preparation to something. There's a lot of political activity happening. We saw yesterday at Davos, in Switzerland, and the day before at the White House and elsewhere. A lot of discussion by the president and other heads of state talking about the situation in Iran and what the likely kinetic moves might be, if any. President Trump once again took credit for saving the lives of 800 people from execution last week. According to reports, some of those people have actually been executed a day or two ago. It was yesterday. We'll see. The reports are unconfirmed. Um, there are a lot of pieces moving around the board. USS Abraham Lincoln has been radio silent now for 2 days. There are other pieces moving around. There's a lot of forces that have been moved out of the theater because they were not necessary to be there. There are other things that have been moved into theater. These are things that are seen on public tracking websites. Yeah, these aren't like secrets I'm leaking or something, obviously. We're seeing these things happening. Right? Aircraft, Navy, apparently ground troops, etc., infantry, whatever, moving into position for something. You don't move this many pieces around at the great cost that it costs in order to not use them in any way, even if that way is just political pressure. So there is political pressure at the very least. We know there's diplomatic pressure happening. You have to keep in mind the economy in Iran is completely screwed. Their money is worth nothing. People apparently got paid. People who work for the government got paid 2 days ago on time. But the amount they got paid is probably not sufficient for them to make it through their month, given that the value, the purchasing power of their currency against the dollar has fallen more than like 96% this month. And it's trading at around whatever it is, 820. Yesterday I looked at this, was around 826 millionths or billionths or 100. I don't know, it's crazy. There were like at least 6, 7, or 8 zeros, after the decimal, to the right of the decimal, before the number is 826. So it's not worth much at all. Although they're high ICU in there, it's fallen dramatically. Last year, just to give you an example of how bad it is, last year the average salary in Iran was about $400 to $500 per month, and the average minimum, or the minimum income in Iran, if you're on minimum wage or whatever, is about $110 per month. That was last year when their economy, as bad as it was, had not yet plummeted through the floor like it has this month. Now, if you were making $400 to $500 a month, you're making about $4 to $5 a month. Or is that right? No, about $40 to $50 a month. Sorry. And if you were making $110 a month minimum, you're basically down to a couple of bucks. $1, $2, $3 a month. People can't obviously live on that in Iran, despite the bad economy. Yes, prices are relative and everything, but People can't live on that. Um, when the norm was $400 to $500 a month for salaried people, and the minimum was 110, and now it's lost 96% of its value. That's, there's no way these people are going to be able to sustain themselves at such incredibly low income rates as an entire country. Although if I see you guys, I show. I see your messages. If you guys, if you like what I'm doing, by the way, do me a favor and like and subscribe. Thanks. Help get the word out. I'm bringing you coverage about Iran because to me it's very important. I have a lot of friends who are affected by this. A lot of people I do business with who are affected by this. Also, more importantly, well, I don't know what's more important. Well, it kind of is on the grand scale of things. Iran is currently led by a very oppressive dictatorial regime that is what we call the head of the snake. They are spreading not only oppression throughout their own country, mistreating and abusing and killing their own people in horrible, horrible ways, even without this revolution happening. Like thousands of people a year, they just execute because they're not loyal to the regime, or they do something that the regime doesn't like. But they actually spread terrorism right throughout the world, throughout the Middle East, throughout Asia, throughout South America, Europe, United States, everywhere. Right? Everywhere that Islamic jihadism is spread, there's a good chance that Iran's dictatorial regime, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the occupiers of Iran, if you want to call them that, are the ones behind it, or at least contributing to that. And even though it's funny, because a lot of times the people that do the terrorism acts outside of Iran, yeah, sure, many times they are Shia affiliated, but a lot of times they're not. They're Sunni, and yet they still get funding from Iran, right? Like, for example, Hamas, right? Sure, the Hezbollah is Shia up in Lebanon, and they're also around the world in many places. But Hamas, they're Sunni, right? And many other groups that they sponsor are Sunni. So, yes, they hate each other because they don't agree on the lineage of who was descended directly from Muhammad, but they hate the people who are not Muslims more, and specifically Jews and Christians, and they kind of hate us the most, Atheists also, and what they call hypocrites, infidels, whatever, they hate them as well. But they have a special place of hatred for the Jews and the Christians, without whom their religion would not exist. It takes a special kind of hypocrisy to think that that's okay. כן, אני מדבר עברית. מה קורה? איך אתה? אני בסדר, תודה רבה. פשוט הולך ומדבר ומעדכן אנשים. I'm updating people as I walk. This is a walk and talk, as I like to call it. We're seeing a lot of negotiations happening right now between the U.S. and the Gulf states about what to do. We've seen Trump at Davos say, well, we're not sure we'll see any more, action, or that we'll see any action by the U.S. military in Iran, and he hopes that we don't see any. And he said, well, I saved 800 people last week, so hopefully that'll put an end to it. But at the same time, he also said, but we're seeing more people get killed. So he's not unaware that people are still dying. Right? The intel that they have from whatever sources they have them, and there are many, are clearly making it evident to him that people are still dying there. And he has said that he thinks it's time for new leadership in Iran. And he has also said yesterday in an interview on News Nation that if Iran tried to assassinate him again, he already gave orders to nuke Iran, like the whole country, which we really hope that doesn't happen, obviously. God forbid. 93 million people who clearly Most of them do not like their dictator. And when I say clearly, okay, there are no polls that you can really say are 100%, bona fide in Iran, because they don't have a free press and they don't have free speech, right? So there's no way to know with 100% certainty if any poll there is valid about anything. But the consensus, at least from anybody that's talking about this thing, is that sure, there are still people who are loyal, obviously, the IRGC and the armed forces of the different factions, the army and all that, are still apparently loyal to the dictatorship. However, the vast overwhelming majority of people protesting and rioting and involving themselves in the actual revolution, because this is beyond protests and demonstrations, this is a revolution. The vast number of people coming out, they're clearly all anti-government, and the numbers of people coming out in support of the government are far smaller and happening far fewer times, and they are clearly orchestrated by the government, meaning the government is telling people, if you support the government, come out at this date on this, at this place, and make a show of support. So people are going out to show support, either because they do support it because the government still feeds them enough for them to support it, or because they feel pressured that if they don't, bad things will happen to them. Right? But the crowds are nowhere near as big at those events as they are on the real organic events that are happening, even while people don't have internet access and can barely communicate with each other apart from regular phone calls, which are all obviously monitored. So they have to be extremely careful in how they talk if they even want people to go to do something, right? And a huge organized action, like showing up to a place to riot or, start a revolution or continue a revolution, those are not things you can easily say on the phone, right? When you're being monitored and censored and hounded by the police and the military. And they're literally beating to death people that they catch and shooting them and doing all kinds of terrible things. Like, it's brutal. The videos I've seen, maybe some of you have seen them on open source intelligence sources or in different places where we're seeing leaks coming out of Iran. It is horribly brutal what is happening right now, right? And we know the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier strike group already left the bay or the Straits of Malaysia a couple days ago, was heading towards Sri Lanka, and then from there it would turn up to the Gulf. So it may get to that area, to Sri Lanka area, at some point today and start heading up towards the Gulf. Who knows? It's a very busy shipping lane, so it's, as much as it may seem like a needle in a haystack if you're looking for a ship on an ocean, when you know where to look and you know what tools to use, it's not hard to know, and you know how to do math. It's not hard to figure it out, where they are, etc. But the reality is, it doesn't really matter if they get exactly into the Gulf or not. They don't need to get into the Gulf. Right? The weapons on an aircraft carrier strike group can reach thousands of kilometers, right? So they could be at the southern end of Iran, in the water in the Arabian Sea, and still hit Iran in all of its targets that they want to hit, right? They could easily hit targets in Tehran from there. They could easily hit targets across the whole country. Like, they don't actually need to be in the Gulf, as much as people like to think that. So they could be within range today or tomorrow or the next day, the day after that. We don't know, right? That group can travel, it's publicly available information, right? That aircraft carrier can travel up to 30 knots per hour. So times 24, you do the math, right? It's more than 700 miles a day you can do. And not that it's going to go flat out top speed all the time, of course, but it can easily go 20 or more. And it has been doing that for some days already, that we saw before it went radio silent a couple days ago. And of course, the ships that travel around it can obviously travel that speed as well, and in fact faster, because they're smaller, but they still have powerful engines and they don't have this massive weight to pull around. So if they need to move faster to do other things in the meantime, they can. Those are some of the things that are being moved around. Of course, keep in mind that an aircraft carrier strike group has usually, has more firepower on it than like the armies of 10 nations combined. Yeah, sure, small nations, whatever, but like, they are incredibly powerful resources, right? They're like mini countries, if you want to call it that way, or mini armies. And they're not mini armies; they're massive armies. And for the U.S., they're significant. But like the U.S., thank God, has a bunch of those things. It certainly has enough resources to handle the Iranian government. So we're going to see in due course, and my estimate is, since we've already passed the moonlight days opportunities of the 17th and 18th, when there was very low moonlight, now we are past also the payment date deadline of the 20th and the 21st for the reaction of people on the 20th and 21st. We're on the 22nd already. There are some people who are saying, watch, it'll happen. It's going to happen on the 23rd. Somebody's saying it's going to happen on the 28th. Somebody's saying it's going to happen on February 1st because that's the date that the Ayatollah came to power. Someone's saying that it's going to happen a couple days before that so that the Shah can come back on February 1st. I'm saying, even if it happens between now and February 1st, the probability that it'll be safe enough to bring the Shah back on the 1st February is extremely unlikely, okay? Because even if you get rid of the Ayatollah and the leaders of the IRGC, you're still going to have a bunch of other leaders of the IRGC, like lower level ones, who are going to vie for power. They're going to try to take control, right? And if they still have a great arsenal at their disposal, they're going to try to use that to take control on the ground and, not get eliminated by the huge angry mobs. And, their gunmen, their soldiers, their terrorists at that point, whatever you want to call them, they are now anyway, are going to do everything they can to stay in control. So there'll be a lot of gunfight, war kind of activity, even if you get rid of the Ayatollah very quickly, right? It may not turn into a long, dragged out insurgency, but there will be some kind of fighting. It's not just going to be one and done. Right? Yes, for the U.S. and whoever else helps from the outside, it may be a very swift operation, and they may not even put any boots on the ground, right? Probably not, because why would they? They don't want to. The U.S. doesn't want to occupy Iran. It can't. It's 93 million people, and what are we going to try to do there? It'd be crazy. But something is very much still happening. If you're in Iran, don't lose hope. I do believe help is on the way. It's a matter of when, not if. So my guess is still days, not weeks. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Please like and subscribe if you would. I'd appreciate it. And we'll catch you in the next video. All right. Shalom. Peace.